So pretty much I think I'm done grinding all the casting bosses and casting flash all out of the way. Now I'm going to be moving to a gasket matching the intake. Now you don't want to hog out the entire diameter of this material that needs to be removed like that one. You want to contour it so that this gasket will slowly ramp inward to into the runner. You're not going to be hogging out all the material. You're just going to make a gradual radius and transition into the runners. So you're not going to be removing all this material that's out here. And just got to make sure it lines up. A use of dowel pins may be useful here to keep the gasket in place. Now, to keep track of the gasket, if it's in the correct location or not, is you line it roughly with the bolt holes. And yes, what you're hearing there is my chickens. They come around once every often. So once you get it roughly lined up, you can take a spray can, maybe paint of a red color or white. I'm going to use white in this case so I can see the gasket surface better and where I need to kind of grind off. But you need to absolutely make sure you're in the correct spot, or else the spots that you're going to be grinding is going to be incorrect. You can also use a dicam. Dicam, I think that's what it's called. It's a machinist die. Now take the gasket off, and there you go. So if you look at that, that's the amount of material that needs to be removed from this manifold, or contour it back into the runners just a little bit. You're not going to be removing it. You're not going to be removing a lot of material. You're not going to be hogging out, boring it out, anything like that. You're just going to be smoothing it out. Now this is probably less important because this is for the, what is it called? The crossover, or the exhaust crossover, so that your mechanical choke works, which in this case I'm not going to plug it up since I'm going to be using a mechanical choke. Because, I mean, there's never been anything wrong with using mechanical chokes. Yeah. So, but I have heard that if you plug this off, you can get up to maybe at least 20 horsepower just from plugging this off, because all the intake air charge that's going into the manifold is not heated by this manifold, and because of the crossover tube. Now we're going to move on to the other side. Now when you're removing the material, you need to have some discipline in some ways. It's like this gasket template that you kind of created with the paint, it's not kind of like, you know, the full picture, if you get what I mean. So it's like grind some material off, check, grind some material off, check. You know, it's you know, it's the freaking intake runners we're talking about. You know, it's kind of important that your intake runners don't jut out onto the head and create a ramp, or like create turbulence for the air that's going to be going into the engine. Now, this is probably not the tool you would use. You would probably use some a carbide burr or a bit. In this case, I don't have one. And honestly, with recent inflation and stuff, whatnot going on, it's like $73, maybe $80 for just one single bit. Honestly, I'm just gonna try my best with this, and hopefully not screw up this head. Okay. Now, I believe I said contour some of the runners on this manifold here, but there are some spots where you cannot do that, like this one right here. There's just no surface over here and over here. So in this case, I would just kind of like go in, out, in, out, in, out, grind it off, and just don't really make that ramping sort of thing that I kind of previously mistakenly said. I'm just gonna try just in, out, in, out, in, out of the bit like this and see how we go. We're not gonna radius it in this case because I can't in this spot right here. Now the good thing about the stone bits or burrs, is that they're going to take the material away very slowly since this is cast iron. So partially you don't really need to worry about, you know, messing up like you're going to be doing it on the carbide bit, because the carbide bit's just going to chew through that iron like nothing, like cereal, really. So the stone kind of works in my favor because I'm pretty much a beginner at gasket matching and whatnot. Now, as you can see here, I'm getting close. Right there, if you can see that. I see it. Right there. Just a little bit more. Have some patience also, that's another thing. Looking pretty good. Honestly, this little sensation of this entire process of gasket matching is very surreal, because I've been always wanting to do gasket matching, or kind of, you know, something even related to porting also. And I will say it is slightly nerve-wracking because you know, you mess up, you're not going to be putting metal back. You're only taking metal off in that case. So that's looking pretty good so far. And because thanks to this shape of this bit here, it allows a gradual smooth turn into the runners. So if you look at here, it looks like a straight shot, but if you feel around, it actually gradually goes into the runner, thanks to this shape here. Or thanks to the bit shape. Also, you don't want to go too deep into the runners also. You just want to go in as deep as necessary. Even by my what is it, amateur way, this is actually looking pretty good. Actually feels pretty good too. Now I just got to do this bottom port and this up here. Honestly, I think that looks pretty good. I'm gonna leave that bottom port alone. Actually, maybe just a little bit more. I'm feeling This portion right here can be contoured inward just a little bit because it kind of works like a ramp right here, and we don't want the ramp because the air fuel charge will slam against this ramp and slam against this roof up here. We don't want that because it's going to cause turbulence. A little bit of a radius might work here on these ceiling parts of the runners. Now I'm going to smooth out just this part just a little bit so it's not bumpy. Now if you can't get this perfect, I think it's fine. Alright, that's one port done. Now we need pretty much a few more to go. I may smooth this out just a little bit on the inside because it's a little bit rough. So frequently the carburetor throttle bores on the manifold are not very precise and frequently exact most of the time when these things are cast. So, and yes, this is a new carburetor that I bought since I was looking around, and the carburetor that I have is an AFB and this is an AVS. The AVS will work with the choke setup that's down here. It's got the little short rod, and yeah, it'll work pretty nicely. And this is a pretty nice rebuildable core. I believe this one came off of a 1968, 69. Well, I mean, either way, they're both the same anyway, 69, 68. This carburetor came off of a, let's just say 69 Roadrunner. And then the manifold came off of a 68 Roadrunner. So, you know, pretty much the same cars. But now the main concern here was the reason why I got the, you know, the carburetor studs for my 2-barrel, and then I chucked them on here. Now the reason why I wanted to do this was the throttle bores potentially may need to be trimmed back just a little bit. I'm gonna see if I can open the throttle and open the secondary valve at the same time. All right, I hope you guys can see that down into the throttle bores. The throttle bores are mostly 90% clear, actually 97% clear. There's some spots where it probably could be trimmed back, but if it's going to be needing to be trimmed back, I'm not going to be bothering with it too much. Like if it's like just the sliver of materials that needs to be removed, I don't really want to, you know, hog out the bores because they're perfectly round, and I don't want to ruin that perfect roundness, if you get what I mean. The primaries look fine, or excuse me if I have this wrong, between the primaries and secondaries. Yeah, the bores look good. This side also, if you can see that. Now, just to kind of show you what I was worried about, because in this case it probably doesn't really make much sense if I have the carburetor sitting on top of here. Now the thing I was worried about is these bores, if they need to be cut back just a little bit, and for the most part they don't need to be, so that's good. I could chamfer these so it has like a little radius on top of these so that the air doesn't smack into this little flat spot and then cause turbulence. I believe few weeks back I was talking about radiusing these inner edges of these bores under here because it's very rough and flat, and this is very rough. So this will probably need to be radiused just a little bit. But getting down here is going to be a little bit difficult because it's way down there. See, look at that. I could get my whole finger down there and then I just barely reach it. So that's the length of these bores. Yeah, getting down there is a little bit difficult, and giving a radius on these things. But I think giving a radius on these bores over here is not going to be too much of an issue because they have, well, longer bores. Meanwhile, this one over here is more shallow, so it's more abrupt. So if there's going to be some performance negatives, it's probably going to be with these bores over here, which I believe is the primaries and secondaries. Quote me if I'm wrong on that. Yes, okay, so I could give these a nice radius in here, but not too much. I'm not going too crazy on it. Just make sure it's not flat like this surface here. But aside from that, this carburetor fits nice and snug on the manifold. So honestly, I think this was my first main mistake here. Was I should have just, you know, slowed down, did my research before I just start buying all these parts and potentially not getting it to work. The Carter AFB was the perfect example. I was just so excited to get the 4-barrel on, but I didn't realize that different year manifolds would require a completely different carburetor setup in some sense. As to make this mechanical choke work, I need the AVS, and I wasn't really going to be considering electronic chokes because I don't really like the electronic chokes very much. It's not very it's not, in my eyes, it's not old school in the way that I'm thinking of. But I do believe the electric chokes came standard on these carburetors though. And mechanical chokes also. Yeah, so aside from the port work needing to be done on these sides, I just kind of took the chance at plopping the carburetor on there and seeing if the bores need to be cleaning up. And thankfully, it doesn't. So that's very good. And yeah, this carburetor will need to get rebuilt, that's for sure. I was able to restore some of that little old, well, restore, but keep really the original of the manifold paint that's on here. And another interesting thing is this carburetor actually has a idle compensator valve. If you can see this piece right here, that's an idle compensator valve, or so I believe from looking at all those old Mopar Chrysler you know, repair slideshow sort of videos. So I believe that's a idle compensator. So I believe this carburetor is correct for what I need because my car's air conditioned and it has power steering. This one, oh, and automatic transmission. This carburetor is off of a automatic and air conditioned and power steering, yeah, automatic transmission and air conditioned vehicle. So I believe I pretty have much, potentially have nailed down the correct carburetor. I hope you liked this video, and comment, rate, and subscribe. See you later then.